Assalamu
Please. Sorry, I said before you said.
alaikum, Hazur.
Assalamu.
Hazur, today we have 5 guests. First on my right is Mr. Barry Noon. Barry Noon is an architectural consultant, and he also practices a healing process called Reiki.
We have met before, haven't we?
No, not Mr. Noon. No,
Not
sir.
this one.
Not
I see,
this
I
gentleman.
see.
And he also...
Because a gentleman who came from America, he also practiced healing practices while it was not his profession.
That's right. So he's here today as well.
Hmm?
He's here today as well.
Where is he?
Michael Embry.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's right.
He's today.
Thank you.
Then we have Barry is also he had his kidney transplanted in 1984. So
Really?
he's a
Yes, sir.
long-standing kidney transplant. Then we have Sue Lyon. Sue
In
Lyon, 84.
Mashallah, it
It's
has
a
stayed and
long, that's right.
your body has accepted it. Huh?
Apparently, as long as I'm compliant.
We have Sue Lyon. Sue Lyon is a medical journalist, and she has been in publishing for 20 years. Then we have Michael Embry. Michael is an American businessman who is writing a book on alternative therapy and is also a student of theoretical physics. Then we have Mr. Pelican. He was born in Iraq and educated in Italy, and is a professor of music and art, and was taught in the States as well, and currently is teaching in the UK. And then we have Mr. Petty, who is a Buddhist and is a solicitor by profession. He comes from Sri Lanka and has been in this country since 1990. So
Please.
I'd ask Mr. Noon to please put forward the first question.
I see. So it's, it's a question really about the dichotomy between theology and economics. Just to set off a nice light start to the proceedings. It appears that the accumulated debt of the third world is about, the interest to pay it is about £2 million, which is just about what Comic Relief raise in a whole year. Similarly, Jubilee 2000 is an organisation I'm sure you're aware of, Raf, who are organising a human chain in Birmingham when the G8 leaders meet next week. And they're organising to request them to release the third world from some of their debt. Liberation theology has resulted as a response to the previous arrangements whereby third world countries got themselves into serious financial trouble, which resulted in money that had been allocated being misspent and oppressive regimes coming on, etc., etc. And I'm just wondering, do you feel that there is a place for theology? Does theology and economics mix?
Of course there is, and it is because of disregard to this link that all these things are happening which you have referred to in general. You see, I am an outspoken person, although I want to be very courteous in what I say, but I think in reality you will agree with me that the West should raise protest. Free-minded Western people should raise protests far more against child abuse than against the third world abuse. All the third world has become a laborer to serve the cause of the rich countries. And they're completely bonded to their debts, whatever they owe by way of unserved debts, which go on rising on the money which was lent to them. There is a clear picture. No man with any knowledge can gainsay this. the monetary system is wrong.
That's, I agree.
That is the point. Whenever you give money to the poor people and you start getting interest on that money which you loan to them, from then on they are enslaved by you. By you, I mean by the system.
If it's set up that way, yes.
Yes, that's right. Yes. And they can never wriggle out of this. A factor is completely forgotten, which Islamic economic system keeps in view, that money by itself neither grows nor decreases. Whenever it is bonded to human qualities, then either it begins to grow or it begins to decrease. There is so much which can be proved, which can be presented as an evidence in favor of this claim, that when the banks, for instance, lend money to some people for the sake of their purported business, to promote the business which they have in mind, very often it sinks and sometimes it does not. So money by itself has neither the quality of increasing nor the quality of decreasing, but it depends on who is employing this money. But the interest rate system, the usury system,
yes, it's usury,
turns a blind eye to this fact. They say when we pay money, give money to somebody, it must increase.
And I think we probably agree that the system, usury, let's not mince it.
Yes.
That's what it is wrong. Now, how else? Do you have a view as to what other system we could generate?
Let me first explain what is the Islamic viewpoint on this. Islam is strictly against usury because, as explained by the founder of Islam, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, that money by itself can neither increase nor decrease. If you put it in a shelf, it will remain exactly as it was. But the system makes it appear to have lost its value or gained its value. By itself, it does not have that quality. So if in the economic system of Islam, as it is, usury is completely forbidden, then a new system would automatically emerge. That is of partnership.
Right.
And when you go for this new system of partnership, everybody will have to take safeguards against the money he employs. Even the banks will have to. Because if they lose, they will lose. There, the factor of honesty begins to emerge.
Yes.
And ultimately command the entire economy.
Rather than profit.
Rather than profit.
Right.
This is exactly what happened at the time of early Islam, when this system was introduced. Amazingly, a person who was one of the greatest jurists of Islam, Imam Abu Hanifa was his name, it was not his business to get money and employ it as he could best do so. But it is reported that millions of rupees or pounds, whatever it was at that time, were sent to him in pockets and with notes that we trust you. We know you are an honest person. So please find room for employment of this money. If you ever do, then if you gain, send us the profit. If you lose, we'll accept it. And he was one of the richest persons of his time because of this. Although most often his time was spent on jurisprudence, but he has a very clever brain for such things. he most often employed in real estates.
Property member.
And the real estate is a true, genuine, I should say, touchstone of economy's growth or its decay. Because in the true real estate, which is free from all usury and interests, will always increase by demand, genuine demand. And when there is lack of genuine demand, then it will decrease its value. So he had a clever mind of employing this money in areas where he knew the real estate is going to pay him rather than cause to lose his money. But some other qualities which he possessed, not only real estate, but about the real estate, but about other things. There is no need to go into detail. Made him, as I said, one of the richest persons. It's another thing altogether. The money he thus gained was spent in good cause of helping the poor. But because he was a selfless person, he didn't have any other employment of that money in his mind than to serve the cause of the poor. So here is an economic system which is safe and sound. Instead of extracting money out of the pockets of the poor, it is filling those pockets.
Right.
And this is a very happy system which can even now be adopted, but will not be adopted.
Because?
Because of the selfishness which goes, because of the lack of morality.
I understand.
Ego is the main culprit, ego in man. And atheism, which may be subdued, but in reality, those who genuinely believe in God consider themselves answerable. And when the realization of answerability arises, then it is impossible for them to remain cruel to the poor and the needy, etc., etc. They would be concerned for their cause and will not indulge in any practices which produces the counter effects, contrary effects to this.
Sure.
Right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please?
Yes, could I pick up on Barry's question about the developing countries?
Yes.
I think in the richer countries, a lot of people want to help poorer countries. You only have to see the response if there's a natural disaster. How would you advise people in the richer countries to help poorer countries?
When you speak of any help to the poor countries, please realize that what little is doled out to them is far too small than what they owe you. So this help is only an eyewash. It doesn't mean anything. While on the other hand, your system is responsible for depriving them of all their possessions, in the sense that South America, for instance, has been completely sold out to American banks. They do not owe even an inch of land, which they can call it theirs, though apparently they employ that land for cultivation and other things. But in reality, what is happening is that the services, the debt services which they have to take care of are greater than their total income.
So how should the individual in a richer country,
Individuals are free
what should they do?
Of course, there's a different question altogether. We're talking of systems. As far as the good individuals are concerned, they are found in every society alike, even among those who do not believe. But because they are governed by their own genes, which God has made in a way that basically man is good. So unless influenced to the contrary by the society in general, if they keep to their individual character with which they were born, you'll be amazed to see that even those who openly say there is no God, they find an internal impulse and compulsion to serve the cause of the poor, to serve the cause of humanity as such. So you can never rule out the existence of such people, whether they are believing or non-believing. And they are most welcome. The Holy Quran praises such people belonging to every society and clearly praises them for the goodness they carry, even if they do not subscribe to Islam. So that is a different question altogether you are posing. I come across many such good people every day in my life, and I am deeply impressed by their nobility. But they cannot change the seasons. A swallow or two cannot change the fall into a spring. Can they? They may cheer up here and there, they may appear beautiful, but they cannot change the whole weather, the system. In this case, the system which they belong to. Yes?
Your Holiness.
Yes, welcome once again.
Yeah, back at you.
Yes.
I have a project that I'm working on that might answer some of these questions. Is cooperative farming, and the guy that we're using as our consultant did cooperative farms in India and Bangladesh for 14 years. Took Indian villagers from $100 a year income to $2,000 a year income, and also increased the income of the people that donated the land to the project, because all the land there is owned. You know, it's not like in South America where there's lots of land and you could, or in America where you could just buy a piece of land and do what you want. So anyway, we were looking forward to the cooperative farming project, and I've been thinking about asking the Ahmadiyya community to help with it. You know, to actually, we would provide the money, and you guys, you know, provide the leadership. And so that'll be something we'll talk about later. But something that goes hand in hand with that, the buildings that we had in mind of building for the people to live in on these cooperative farms would be built according to ancient knowledge of proportion, around which almost everything grows. It manifests itself most evidently in the way a seashell spirals out, but also the human arm, you know, our human body grows in the same way, you know, spirally. Everything grows in a spiral. And I wondered if in the Quran there was any talk about these proportions.
In fact, you have drifted from one subject to another.
Yeah, right.
You know, in a flow whereby I could not precisely say when you change your position from this to that. So you have touched upon many subjects.
Yeah.
I'll take them up one by one, if you permit me. As far as the cooperative societies are concerned, Islam is all out for such things. Cooperative. Even cooperative insurance, cooperative banking is legal in Islam. But the laws of the countries where such corporations grow interfere with this system, so that the element of usury is always introduced. This is the main problem. So I don't know what conditions prevail in your cooperative societies in India, cooperative farming societies, but who lends the money? This becomes the question. And where does he get his money from? And if it is like the ordinary bank loans on which bank guarantees a flow of profit back to the bank, then it would influence the societies as well. On the contrary, apart from this, we, as Jamaat Ahmadiyya, have been experimenting with these things. While we loan out completely free of any obligation to pay back more than what was loaned out to such farmers who make a cooperation. I have been experimenting on this, but the problem is that the present standard of honesty in the world is very low. The result is that it is not the usury which strikes, it is the lack of morality which strikes. And the people who are made in charge of these things, like NGOs, etc., they indulge in things which completely destroy the whole project. So there are many problems which we confront because of lack of morality, growing lack of morality in the world. We started working in Africa in various NGOs, and some governments trusted us much more than they trusted their governments to be instrumental in promoting NGOs. But we respectfully drew away, took our hand off this project, because our experiment was not very successful, only because of some let me say, dishonest people, or at least those who did not care much about honesty. They tried to spread their personal influence of gains at the cost of the other members who should have been given equal rights. So these projects I ultimately abandoned because they might have earned a bad name to the honor of Jamaat, which was entrusted by countries like Canada and some other countries, as I've said. They said, you go ahead and do whatever you like, we'll support you. I said, thank you for your support, but let's withdraw, please. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes, Your Grace, it's wonderful that we have this chance again, this auspicious occasion. As you know, it's more than 10 years that I'm acquainted with.
Fine?
It's more than 10 years that I'm acquainted with the Ahmadiyya movement.
Yes.
And it puzzled me that more and more the world is becoming selfish. In fact, the scientists are proving that the genes are selfish genes, that even nature adopts the philosophy of the free market, and it is purely capitalistic, this and that. There is no scope for any other, and it has become unashamedly much more violent, this type of concept, in the scientific world, in the economic world. That's why I had even great admiration of your openness and the possibility that you create this dialogue between various members of the community. My question is this: if we can see that in the world of economy and the policies resulted from these attitudes is not heading towards collaboration, because at the end of the day they always think in private property and also profit. What about in the world of religion and the religious communities? Your efforts and the efforts of the Ahmadiyyas, in fact the best treatise that it has been written, the philosophy of Islam, it was because of this occasion that they created a dialogue between the various religious communities. Is this continuing? Is it much more a healthful thing, or can we have hope, or it is the same hopeless situation that we find in the fields of economy and policies?
During this question, you have raised certain questions whose validity is questionable. About genes, for example.
Okay.
If genes are selfish, they are not consciously so. Because the greatest naturalists totally deny a conscious awareness to genes. So, what is inbred into them, that is what is being referred to as selfish. Genes have no mind. They do not operate of free will. And lack of understanding of what's happening is referred to as the selfish genes. Like Professor Dawkins has perhaps written a book, Selfish Genes. And the problem is that if the genes are selfish, they are following the dictates of their creator. Because one thing is certain, that they, having no mind, did not create themselves. And if they did not create themselves, how could they come into being? This requires a creator. And because of this factor, more and more naturalists, who are not overwhelmed by the majority of them, but who have their own individual freedom to say things, they declare that it is impossible for genes to have happened without a creator. Because they follow a definite law. They never deviate from that, following that law. And it is this which is misunderstood as selfishness of genes. If genes are selfish, they are selfish to serve an unselfish purpose. That is the point which has been discussed in detail in my book, just about to be published now, because we have gone through all the final checking and recheckings, and now with the grace of Allah, I can say that the press is about to publish it now, any moment. So if you go through this chapter about genes and their behavior, you will have a completely new picture of the world around you, because I have proved that the genes, the selfish genes, serve the cause of unselfishness. How can it happen? You can read and you will find out. The fact is that to attribute crimes and criminal tendencies to genes is absolutely wrong. In humans, the genes are so modeled and shaped that humans, as against all the lower animal kingdom, have the freedom of choice. This is what is provided to them by their genes. While the animal genes do not provide animals the freedom of choice with a consciousness to make either this choice or that choice. If they ever do, it's only in a very limited area. And why it is so, that has been discussed by me in detail in this book. But for the time being, it should be sufficient for you to notice that lions and other beasts of jungle eat flesh, which may be an act of crime according to some humans and may not be an act of crime according to some others. But they can't change it. You'll never see a lion eating crops. Instead, the flesh which comes to in its way, on its way. So this is gene. It has different commands for animal kingdom and different commands for human kingdom. In humans, it is the genes which provide us the choice and opportunity to make conscious choices. These choices could be bad ones or good ones, for which we are responsible. To claim that because of genes we steal, because of genes we amass money which shouldn't have belonged to us, and because of genes we do, irregularities and sexual behavior, is all false. If it is according to genes, and the genes have only one message, that behave like a totally immoral people, then the good people you mentioned shouldn't have been born. It's impossible, because the genetic symbol impulses override every other thing. Now, would these scientists advise that because it is genetic, so whatever we like to have, we may have, and the laws should not be, the legislation should not declare these things unlawful? If it is genes, why should human legislation work against the nature? So robbery, stealing, rape, any crime is because of our genes. Why do we suppress that? Because it is a suppression which is also in the genes. The message of genes is that if you continue to permit yourself to do anything you like, you will be completely destroyed. So discipline yourself. And that is the reason why society is evolved. The society comes into being. Impulses from genes are of one nature as well as of another nature. So it is a balance between the two which decides the character of a society. I hope I have been able to answer your questions, but if not, please wait for a few more days or weeks when Imam Sahib will send you the book, and there you can read all these chapters with a cool mind and with let me say, uninvolved attitude. Where yourself will not be involved, you will just read these things as if you are watching it from a bird's eye view.
It's very refreshing to hear that. I did not say that I agreed, but what I said that it is becoming more and more the dominant philosophy, the dominant aspect of so-called knowledge nowadays and science, which worries me. That's why I said, how about religious communities? Now, all the efforts that you have been creating and the Ahmadiyyas to create this dialogue between the religious leaders and the religious communities, is it a fruitful, or do we have anything more palpable that we can say, here it is, this will pave the way? Because I noticed that only politicians are getting together, countries are trying to get their economies together, but do the religious communities do that? And to what?
The fact is that this is exactly what we are trying to achieve. In all our projects, there are always such projects which improve the quality of the have-nots. And it's completely free from any self-interest of the community, because it spends on them, does not gain anything from what they gain. So that is a positive proof that we have not that ego working upon this system, which is in fact the main culprit for destroying the economy of the world. So this we are doing as a community in totality. In our final analysis, we are doing this as a community, as a single entity. But this cannot be said of each individual belonging to this community. So we are gradually screening out these people from the community when proofs are gathered that they are working contrary to the principles of the Jamaat. So gradually this cheating or mishandling of financial affairs, things and all such things, where cheats are free to roam about and dispossess people of their genuine possessions, this is becoming definitely much less than it was, say, about 10 years before. Because I'm consciously building that machinery to catch these thieves and robbers and to chuck them out of the community, with the result that the community would be much safer than before at the hands of these people. I do not spare even the closest of my blood relations. When they are found to be indulging in this thing, they are thrown out. So that is one punitive measure which is being adopted. But far more than that, I am giving them the examples of the Holy Prophet of Islam, other prophets of any religion. I tell them these are our models. And if you follow them, all of them stood as a body to help the cause of the poor and not to help the cause of the capitalist. This is true of every religion. So by reminding them of the examples in a manner that influence their hearts, sinks into their hearts, I'm improving the general quality of the Jamaat with the grace of Allah with great success. So the same is done to the newcomers. The same policy applies to the newcomers which join the community by millions per year. It's a difficult task, I agree, but not an impossible task.
Thank you.
Please.
The very word Islam means peace.
That's right.
Then would you kindly explain why there have been sanguinary wars between Islamic countries and bloody clashes between various sects of Islam?
Excuse me, you belong to Sri Lanka?
That's right, yes.
Do you know what Buddhism stands for?
That's right, yes.
Why such things are happening in Sri Lanka which are completely contrary to the message of Buddha?
Yeah.
You realize them?
Yes.
Why? This is what I said, suppressed atheism. It's not always atheism, it's a suppressed rebellion against the system to which you belong. You do not openly declare yourself out of that system, but in your life you always carve a path for your life which is contrary to the dictates of the system. This is what's happening everywhere. Look at Christianity, at Judaism, whatever name you give to your religion or a way of life, the same applies to all of them. So Islam being no exception. Right?
That means the craving of the people or greed of the people.
That is right. It means that the people, particularly the so-called leaders, religious leaders in Islam, they are misleading people about Islam. And they are serving only their own cause. They are exploiting Islam to gain power over ignorant masses. And they do not care for Islamic values in the least. As I said, they do not care a fig for what happens to Islamic values. This is exactly what's happening everywhere in the Muslim countries and very subtly in the Christian countries as well. Subtly and more sensibly. Now the child abuse in England, for instance, has gained such proportions that you watch a program appearing on television which indicate that cruelty is growing more and more towards children in one program, an experienced police officer said that at least one of every 4 houses harbors these ill tendencies. And that is what comes to our knowledge. What does not, we do not know. But they are wise enough not to attribute these things to Christian teachings. That is the only difference. In the stupid Islamic country, forgive me this usage, they openly attribute these vulgar habits of theirs to Islam. So they are responsible for the bad name which Islam is earning everywhere in the world, and their the behavior of Christian countries, but their cleverness saves Christianity from censure, doesn't it?
And Christian countries have been at it for a while, haven't we? We've had our fair share of wars going back centuries.
Yes, I know that.
You know, we can give lessons in how to
If I talk about all these things,
I'm afraid
it will not take centuries, but at least weeks for me to cover the whole subject. Yes. Thank you very much for reminding. Please.
Our final guest is Augustine, who is a geophysicist.
MashaAllah.
My question is quite related to what is just asked now. I'm from Africa, and my country is a secular state. We've got Christians and we've got Muslims. I happened to go to a Muslim school, Ahmadiyya Primary School. And essentially every morning, the first slogan is Islam preaches peace, right? But somewhere along the line, I discovered there is this rift between the Ahmadiyya movement and the Anwaru Islam movement, to the extent that every now and then they keep changing the name of the school. At a point, I wasn't quite sure what my school's name is, because today is Ahmadiyya,
Yes.
the day after it's Anwaru Islam.
Yes.
So I said to myself, what the hell is going on? They're supposed to be the same Islam, isn't it? So I don't know if you could shed more light as to the difference in the doctrine between the Ahmadiyya movement and the Anwaru Islam movement.
What else have I been doing here now? In also all the questions, I was answering your unasked question. This is a difference, this is a parting of ways between us and the so-called fundamentalists, who have no claim to any fundamentals, because they stop halfway traveling towards the beginning of Islam and totally reject the conduct of Hazrat Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the holy founder of Islam, in implementing what he understood to be Islam, because it does not serve their purpose. You will be amazed to find them quoting only the medieval scholars, and that is what is creating misunderstandings about Islam in all the Western universities. They quote them, these so-called Muslim scholars of today, referring to Maulana Maududi and this Imam and that Imam. Why don't they go back to the beginning of Islam itself? Why do they not quote the fundamental, that is Quran, as understood by the Holy Prophet himself? Now I can give you just one example about blasphemy. The Holy Quran is so clear on this subject. There is not a shadow of doubt cast on the question of blasphemy, which can be cast on the question. The practice of the holy founder of Islam is completely contrary to what they claim Islam should be. All sorts of blasphemies were committed by the people at the time of the holy founder of Islam. They openly abused him. They indulged into invectives against him in his presence. People who are well known in the society claimed that they would punish this man a lesson. Daily in the morning, people came to ask questions and then behave or pose as if they had become Muslims. And every day, by the end of the day, they walked out. And that said, we do not agree with the conduct of the Holy Founder of Islam and this and that. This story of allegations against the Holy Founder of Islam is of such nature that ordinarily such people should have been punished to death if these mullahs are right. But none was. Never the Holy Founder of Islam punished any person being blamed for blasphemy throughout his life. Not one. Is this Islam? Or is that Islam what they quote? So that is why I say they willfully stop halfway, because that Islam of ignorance, the days of ignorance, that supports them, but that Islam of the days of enlightenment does not support them. That is the main difference which you find between us and the rest of the so-called fundamentalists. I deny them the right to be called fundamentalists because they never reach the fundamentals. I claim that our concept of Islam is fundamentalist because we always support it with the verses of the Quran and the conduct of the Holy Founder of Islam. It's for anybody to judge. Right?
In Faisalabad, in Pakistan, which is Faisalabad, a Christian bishop
Committed suicide.
has committed suicide in protest against the treatment of one of his parishioners, one of his congregation. I'm not sure of the exact circumstances. You may be better informed than
Yes,
I
I know,
may probably.
yes.
And it seems to me that however you look at it, the offence of blasphemy seems to be so offensive in itself. Acknowledging the degree of the offence, is death necessarily an appropriate response to an offence?
It is the government of Pakistan since the time of Zia which is responsible for promoting these ill tendencies. Never before was a single case registered about a Christian who blasphemed against the honor of the Holy Prophet of Islam. All Christians behaved decently, Catholics or non-Catholics. Never once you can detect from the history of Pakistan a single affair which this happened, even remotely happened. When they started punishing people against blasphemy, it was the freedom of the conscience of many such people as Christians there, which said that, which was awakened. They said, who are they to interfere with the liberties, human liberties? So human liberties can be applied to good cause or bad cause. So for their human liberty to begin to be applied to bad cause was ultimately a responsibility of the policies of the government of Pakistan. This bishop protested against not a person who had blasphemed. This bishop protested against the people who blamed him for blasphemy and whose word was taken without any justice. So this is the issue against whom he offered his life, sacrificed his life. You see, what happens there is that any Tom, Dick and Harry can start commotion among the Muslims if they say somebody blasphemed against Rasulullah. In whose hearing he did it? Why did he do it? Nobody questions. They gather around him and try to lynch him. And this is being permitted by the government of Pakistan, even promoted, to appease the mullahs, the extremists. So that is the reason why this bishop protested against this behavior, stupid behavior.
Yes, I understand that.
Yes.
But I understand the circumstances,
Yes.
and you're clearly better informed on this than I am. But I still don't quite understand why it is so offensive. I mean, there are blasphemy laws in this
They
country.
should not be
little used.
They should not be offensive. Offensive in a manner that they should hurt the sensibilities of people who love a person who is being blasphemed against.
Yes.
That much. But
Given.
he can answer them with words, because it were words of somebody which hurt him.
Yes.
In blasphemy, this is the principle, that if somebody, and this is the fundamental Islamic principle, that if someone hurts your feelings by words of mouth, your mouth is free to hit back.
You respond. Yes.
But hit back not beyond the limit to which you were hurt.
Right.
But as far as the sword is concerned, it should only be raised when you are hit by sword.
Right.
So coercion against coercion, the word which injures one's feelings is should be answered by words which should
Of equal
punish him
weight.
to that much.
Yeah.
This is Islamic principle.
Mm.
And I think after this there is no question left about the blasphemy.
So are you saying that the mullahs who appear to
Yes.
control the government of
Yes.
Benazir Bhutto are, if you like, out of order?
Yes.
That's what you're saying? I see.
The
Yes.
mullahs use this blasphemy for an instrument to exploit the government as well as the masses.
For what ends?
Because the name of Muhammad Rasulullah, the founder of Islam, however sinful a person is in Pakistan, this name is dear to him. So if the mullah raise a commotion regarding the name of the Holy Prophet, that it is being insulted, and the common masses do not know the real principles of the Quran regarding a struggle between believers and non-believers, they are just told that this is the time for you to offer your life for the sake of the most holy founder.
And thus you get a fatwa.
And then they say, you will be driven straight to heaven,
Yes.
not to hell as they will be.
I'm familiar with the generalities of a fatwa.
Yes, that's right, yes.
And I have Mr. Rushdie in mind. I mean, this poor man has been in hiding for
Yes.
I don't know, 5 years or something, because he thinks that some UK Muslim may jump out of a bush and kill him.
This is wrong.
This is not likely to
It's
happen.
not at all.
So as long as he stays in UK, he'll be
Yes.
all right.
It's all right for him to go anywhere,
Right.
even to a Muslim country.
Right. Even to a Muslim.
According to Islam,
Yes.
he will not be bodily punished for the injury which he caused to the sentiments of Muslims. Right?
I understand it.
For that, Islam teaches sabr, patience.
Yes. But what's in it for the mullahs to generate
This
all
is
this
the
ill
only
feeling?
way they can rule the world of Pakistan.
I see. It's simply a matter
That's
of...
Yes. It's simply a
It's
matter of their
back-
ego.
Took the word from my mouth, sir.
Otherwise, yes, that's right. Otherwise, they do not care, as I mentioned before, for values of Islam.
Mm.
Their own conduct daily gives it a lie, because they're some of the greatest liars in the country, the mullahs are.
Powerful liars, nonetheless.
Yes, very powerful liars. Yes, right. All right, I think it's time, because I have to attend a funeral between now and the prayer.
Understand.
So I should be excused now, please. Although, of course, I love to sit with people like you for hours together,
Thank you, sir.
if the hours are available to me.
So Barry is going to stay behind for the question answers, so you'll have more
Very
time to
good.
spend with him.
Most welcome. Thank you. All right. Thank you.